Hey guys, got another thing for Sentinels in the Multiverse here. Anybody want to play? Does up to 5. Guys? Guys? Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the first top 10 list that I am doing on this channel. Yes, I love top 10 lists. I love it when the Dice Tower do it. I love it when any other reviewer or podcaster does it. Top 10 lists, I don't know, I just get a kick out of them. I like making lists. Yeah, sad, isn't it? But nah, I genuinely do like the top 10 list. It's like my favourite thing to watch on the Dice Tower whenever Tom, Z and Sam do it. It's just great banter, great fun to be seen. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody right here to banter with, but you're going to see my top 10 anyway. And maybe hopefully in the future, if there's any bloggers or podcasters out there or guests who want to be on the show and sit right here in this gap and give their top 10 along with me, then I'm perfectly up for that. I'd like to give it a try sometime. So the advantage of doing it on this rather than the podcast is that, well, if I have the game, I can actually show you it. And if I don't, well, I can show you some imagery to just illustrate the point. But what I did was that I gave a little poll on the Facebook groups a little while ago asking what type of top 10s people wanted. Now, I grouped them into things like, based on a mechanic, based on a publisher, based on a year. And I basically collated the votes, and it revealed that most people, and only by a short amount, like to hear about top 10 lists based on mechanics. There's a problem with that. One, I've done a lot of those with mechanics. I've already exhausted a lot of them fairly recently, and so I will revisit them at some point, but that's for a later date. Nobody really cared about best of the year, which is a bit of a shame, because that would have been an interesting one to do, but, nobody desperately wanted it, and there was not only so much for a publisher as well. People weren't that interested to know what was like the top 10 from Madigo or something like that, for example. But what got the second most votes, and I think this is the one where I think people are going to have more interest in, is what I classed as other or wacky lists. And that's the obscure ones. So to put it in context, Dice Tower will do like top 10 deck building games. Well, that's based on a mechanic. Top 10 Rio Grande games, that's based on a publisher. But then they'll do like top 10 games for 6 players. Okay, that's a little bit different. Top 10 games these jokers don't appreciate. Okay, different as well. Top 10 games that generate the most laughs or something. These kind of weird and wacky top 10 lists. Well, that's the ones I want to do. I've chosen to do that type of list for at least the foreseeable future, and then when I've exhausted that, I'll chop and change and I'll go back to one of the other types. But these lists are a bit more interesting to do because you won't necessarily see other people are doing these, so they'll be more unique. And you also don't run into that situation where you go, I'll do the top 10 deck building games. Here are my 10. Oh look, they overlap 7 of them with this bloke and 7 with this girl. You don't want all that overlap. So hopefully these will be unique and you won't be able to guess most of my list. Hopefully not anyway. Maybe some of you are very astute or clairvoyant, who knows. But that's enough rambling. So let's talk about what this list is about, and that is top 10 games with max players. I am a big advocate of saying that most games don't work as well when you max out the players, particularly when they're Euros. Euros seem to have a sweet spot for me, which is 3 players. Not necessarily the lowest count, but not the highest. 2 is like there's only so much interaction, it's more of a head-to-head duel, and max players for me just tend to do nothing but add to time. And you know me, the longer the game takes, the less I'm inclined to go for it, unless especially if there's one that will do it in a shorter space. But there are some exceptions to the rule. These are games that I not only enjoy, but also either don't mind or really do enjoy, like almost mandatory, want to have the maximum number of players playing. Now, there are a caveat with this. One, I am not including expansions. So if a game has brought in something like an 8-player game, but only started off as a 5, then I'm counting it as the 5. I'm not including expansions that simply bolted in another player, base sets only. I am also excluding from the list, I believe, let's have a look. Yes, I have chosen to do this. I'm excluding party games and also those like little small social deduction games. So things like, like One Night Ultimate Werewolf and stuff like that. Those are excluded as well because chances are they are best with max players anyway. You tend to play them in big crowds and there's only so much difference between the different player counts. And party games, well, I mean, you can play them with like any number of players half the time and so it goes all over the shop. So no party games, no little social deduction party games, we're keeping that out, and no expansions. So let's get on first with number 10. My number 10 has probably lost a few of its pieces out of the special insert I've got for this box, which is rather annoying as I've just stored it like this. But Seven Wonders makes my number 10 and barely squeaks in because I don't always seek out max players with Seven Wonders because I do find myself preferring to play it with less players. Particularly I quite like the 4 and 5 mark. But if somebody wants to play this with 7 players, I will happily play it with 7 players and still enjoy it because it's a different type of game. And I have had a scenario where I have played 30-minute games of the base set of 7 Wonders with 7 players, most of them new, and done it flawlessly. And, very few games can do that. Now, the reason why I prefer to do this with less players, though, is the drafting mechanic. Because with 7 players, you're getting dealt the same amount of cards, 7 or 8. And that means that when you pass the cards on, you're unlikely, if at all, probably impossible for you to see a card return back to you. So yes, you're looking at completely different hands each time, but that means that you are literally just going by what you get. And that's cool, I mean that's a cool tactical feel and I do enjoy playing it that way. But when you have less players, you have that extra thought of, well, this is another hand, but I'm going to take this one for now, but maybe that science card will come back round. Could it? Maybe I'll take the other one and think that the other one will come back round. You get that extra thought process, which is why I do tend to play 7 Wonders with less players. But if somebody wants to play this with 7 players, perfect. I'll do it. It's called 7 Wonders for a reason. It takes 7 players and is really cool to play at 7 players. With expansions, probably not so much because, well, unless all 7 of you know what you're doing. But base set 7 Wonders, even with new players, still very enjoyable and worth trying with the maximum number. My number 9 is a game that was one of the first few co-ops that existed, and certainly the first co-op, I believe, to introduce the traitor mechanic and really take it home. My number 9 is, of course, the ever-popular Shadows over Camelot. Shadows over Camelot is a great, simple co-op game, gateway level even, that really does allow you to just teach this to new players with the maximum number of players. I believe it's 7 in the box, 8 with the expansion, but forgetting expansions, 7 is still a great way to play this game. One of you will more than definitely be a traitor. I mean, you can set it so that there's an uncertainty, which is even better. And the rest of you will be good guys, and you are trying to, the good guys are trying to complete quests and cover this table with white swords, whereas the traitor secretly wants the guys to fail quests, and then black swords appear. People will be accusing each other left and right. You end up with this meta within the group of like, you're always the traitor, you're always the traitor. And every time someone does anything even remotely suspicious, even if it's just like, you know what, I feel like going to the lake right now, and it's like, no, you didn't need to go there. And it's developed to the point where you've got metas like, what, you didn't lose a life point is your bad action? Traitor! And this one generates the most hilarious Monty Python references possible. It is physically impossible to play this game without quoting Monty Python at some point, unless none of you have seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And if you have not seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, then turn this review off, go watch it right now, then come back to this review and watch the rest. Because seriously, not watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail is a disservice to comedy. It's just that amazing. But I digress. Shadows over Camelot is still great with the maximum number of players because you don't want to play this with barely any players. You want that nice big group so that you're not entirely certain who's on your side. And because the turns are super quick, I mean, you do a bad action, then you do a good action. Next player, bad action, good action, bad action, you know, and it just constantly goes around quick, you know, no downtime, you know, unless somebody is APing, which, to be fair, if you're APing in this game, what's wrong with you? But yeah, there's good cooperation between each other. You know, the bigger, the better. Definitely enjoy playing this one with max players. Shadows over Camelot. My number 8 is a new one. In fact, I only reviewed this about a month ago, a month or two ago. And I think it was one of my last few written reviews I did before I started doing video. This is a recent 2017 release, and with all player counts, it's great. Whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. But I will happily play Ethnos with the maximum number of players, because, my God, I gave this one a 10. Just. I think it's, 9, 10, it's definitely that category, because, my God, the design is so streamlined in this. Even though you've got all these different abilities, they're all really simple. The turns are lightning fast. You draw a card, or you play a band of allies and place a marker. That's it. That is all you do. And even in 6 players, with brand new people, I have had times where people haven't even registered what card they just picked up before it gets back round to their turn. And it catches a lot of people off guard as to how lightning fast it is, because we're kind of in this day and age where games are supposed to take forever and the downtime is so slow and I'm getting sleepy. And I can't stand that. Here though, lightning fast, dirt simple, good gateway level game, I admit. The abilities are not that difficult, and if you really want to make it gateway, then just cherry pick the 6 simplest abilities out of the 12 that you have. There are some there that are so dirt simple that anybody could learn it. It's okay, it may look a bit bland, the artwork is not fantastic and the board does look a bit bleh, but that's subjective. But yeah, 6 players, where it says 45 to 60 minutes on this box, it's not a lie. This time the publisher is not lying to you like most of them are. You can get 6 players done in 45 to 60 minutes. It is possible, I have done it, and it's not even that difficult to do it. So definitely worth trying if you like area control games and you want to be able to play a weird number of players, 5 or 6, it's not an easy number to deal with, but in such a short space of time, Ethnos, definitely worth going for. Dare you play Ghost Stories? Ghost Stories is my number 7, and well, yeah, this one is tough as nails. I mean, crawl blimey, this thing comes out of the box, like, ready to slap you around the face. And then it dares to introduce things like hell and nightmare mode. I mean, seriously? I want to play a game. I'm not that much of a masochist. But Ghost Stories enables between 2 to 4 players, and it's a co-op, so you could play this happily by yourself and just control 4 characters. But I think the dynamics with this game are a lot better when you've got 4 of you discussing what to do and using the 4 different abilities of the monks that you use. Because, I mean, yeah, you can play this solo, but I rarely play this one solo. I like to have the 4 people around because everybody in there is tense. It's like, oh my God, we're all going to die, we're all going to die. Literally 2 seconds into the game. In fact, saying that 2 seconds before I even get this game out of the box, I'm saying we're all going to die. It's better to just be a little pessimistic because, let's face it, chances are you will die. And I do really get a kick out of the 4 of you discussing what you're going to do, where should you go, what location you should go tackle that ghost. Everybody just gets into it and, chats with each other. Everyone's like, riled up, come on, we can do this. And everyone works as a solid team, win or lose. So with Ghost Stories, even though it only does from 1 to 4, I will occasionally play it solo, but I don't tend to bring this one out with only 2, and I don't even tend to bring it out with 3. I like to just think, we got 4 of us, you want a co-op, that's going to kick your butt, kick your rear end as often as you will play it, then Ghost Stories is definitely one to check out. So my number 7, Ghost Stories. I've just kind of had a thought that some of you eagle-eyed viewers might be looking behind me to notice if any games disappear off the shelves when I come to do my next one in the list, so that you can try and figure out exactly what it is before I've even got to it. Well, joke's on you, because this one is way over there, so there's no way you can see this. And I could try and distract you with pictures of fluffy kittens, but hey, I've only got so much time to edit these videos. But my number 6 is a staple from my nostalgic childhood. I played this one with the family countless amount of times. I really enjoyed the 1980s version. I think it was Hasbro that brought it out, or Ravensburg, one of the two. And it was just a blast. I enjoyed playing it. Yes, it is mean as all get out, but it certainly does the business. And, you know, children can cry when they play this game, and there have been reports of doing that. Hell, I suppose I'm probably one of those kids when I was younger. But the 30th anniversary reprint of Survive, Escape from Atlantis makes my number 6. And that's because you can play this with, you know, a certain different count of players, and it will go from 2 to 4 in the box. But, you know, the original game, I think you could go anywhere up to 6. But yeah, you want the maximum players for this. You know, you want 4 with this game, and if you get the expansions, you want to go all the way up to 6. But like I say, expansions disallowed. Even with this, 4 players. I don't want to play this with 2. I don't want to play it with 3. I want the maximum number of players every time I play this game, because you want as many meeples as you want on those tiles in the middle, because you're all on this big island that's slowly disintegrating into the waters, and you're trying to evacuate your people to the neighbouring islands. But while you're doing that and getting them into boats, there are sea monsters like sharks and octopuses and stuff like that that are cropping up all over the place. And, you know, the opponents are controlling them to try and eat your guys, whereas you're doing the exact same thing to them. As I said, it's mean as all get out, but it is hilarious fun. Not so much fun if you gang up on just one person, though, so shame on you if you do that. But, you know, it's great fun to just have loads of different players on there where everyone's arguing with each other, like, no, go for him, eat him, no, eat him. Right? I know what you're thinking, and the answer hey! As the sea monster comes and trashes your boat. You know, it's full of great laughs, looks the business. This reprint is fantastic in terms of how it looks on the board, the colours and everything. And like I say, I will always play this with 4 players. If you wanted to get the mini expansions that come with this, playing it with 6 players with the overcrowded variant is just hilarity, because it's just, there's not enough tiles to fit all the people, so it gets really crowded. But even with 4 players on this base map, it gets pretty crowded, and so there's going to be a bit of a bloodbath. But it's going to be a fun bloodbath all the way. That's done and dusted within about 60 minutes or so, really. Just be wary when you play with young kids. So my number 6, Survive, Escape from Atlantis. My number 5, I literally just played this yesterday, actually, at our Southampton BBQ gaming day. It takes a while, takes a good 2.5 to 3 hours every time you play this, but there is no reason why you would want to play this with the minimum number of players, really. I mean, you can, but it's nowhere near as good. 5 isn't, a minimum is 4. 5 is okay. We played it with 5 yesterday. It was great fun, but really, the best way to play New Angeles is with the maximum number of 6 players. This is an intense negotiation game where you're all playing a corporation out of the Netrunner universe, and your city is going to pot, and you're all, as a group, trying to stop it going to pot, but you're all out for your own personal gain money-wise, and so everyone's putting in offers and counter-offers as to, we can help the city by doing this, we could do it by doing this though, and no, I think we should do it this way, and I'll give you some money if you help and vote for me. You know, it's very intense, and it can get quite riley sometimes, you know, especially as people start betraying each other. This one though, also, like with Shadows of a Camelot, has the secret traitor mechanic, and if you've got 6 players, I believe you're always going to have the Federalist who wants the city to tank, but needs to have a certain amount of money in order to do so and win the game. Everybody else has got a secret rival, like Hasbro wants to be better than NBN, and etc. and you've got lots of different like cool little cards that you can get that give you special abilities, but the fun that I have with this game comes down to just the fact that it is straight up negotiation. Your negotiation skills are put to the ultimate test with this one, as you are constantly making offers and counter offers and trying to sway people to your side while figuring out who in this group is secretly trying to tank everyone and who's rivaling who, because then you can play them off against each other. If you can say like, he's MBN, I reckon he's gunning for Wayland over there. So knowing this, or theorizing that I know this, I'm going to play to that, and I'm going to start setting them off against each other and benefiting from it. Great game, definitely worth checking out if you like negotiation games. It is long, we're talking 2.5, 3 hours, and it could be longer than 3 hours. It is a long game, and normally I don't like long games, but this is one of those exceptions to the rule just because you are engaged all the way through. There's no downtime in this, because you are constantly in those negotiations and paying attention to what's going on. Great negotiation game, and certainly at its prime, with the full count of 6 players. New and release from Fantasy Flight. Co-op games can tend to work with the maximum number of players, but this one in particular, because each player has to have a certain station by themselves and you have to play the game with all stations. So you can't, if you have less players, then people have got to do more with their turn. And normally that's not necessarily a bad thing. But in this game, XCOM, the board game, it gets pretty difficult to do this by yourself. And believe me, I've played this game solo quite a few times, and trying to control 4 stations by yourself when you've got the app constantly throwing like timers at you and you're trying to juggle, right, I need to do the audit, I need to do the guys over there, who's defending the base, I need to research this, and oh my god, it blows your mind. I've done it before with solo and it is good fun, but it's certainly a lot more streamlined and a little bit less stressful to just play this with the maximum count of 4 players, because one is the scientist, one's central officer, one's the commander, and one is the squad leader. And with each person doing their own station, it allows for them to concentrate on what they're doing. Trying to concentrate on too many stations at once can get very stressful and a little bit like all over the place. But 1 per station, perfect. I have to trust that the scientist knows what they're doing with those things. I mean, yeah, you talk to each other, but at the end of the day, the scientist is the one looking at his hand of cards. The central officer is the one with the app. The commander is the one who's got to juggle those crisis cards at the end of the day. You haven't got time to read everything out to players. So you trust each other, it's great, you feel like a honed team. I really love this one. It's been in my top 10 before. I think it's slightly slipped out now. Spoiler alert. But yeah, XCOM, still great. I really enjoy this. This was definitely a hit for me from Fantasy Flight, and definitely best played with 4 players. 1 per station. It's the way to go. Right, we're on to the top 3. These are my 3 favourite games to play with the max players, and I'm getting quite lucky because most of the games that I like playing with max players aren't directly behind me, so you're not guessing these ones. Ha! Well, this one is we're going on to Euro games now. We've had a couple of co-ops, we've had the odd sort of gateway games, and co-ops have probably dominated this list. In fact, thinking about it, what did I have? I had Ghost Stories, I had XCOM, I had Shadows of a Camelot. And okay, that's I think that's the main ones. But yeah, they've certainly been on there. And they've certainly been a lot of light gateway games. Well, let's get on to something a little bit more, meaty and in the Euro category. Not a heavy game by any means, but still a classic. After all this time, it's possibly going to get a reprint, and I really hope it does, because more people need to play this. And that is Pillars of the Earth. I had to find this as a second-hand copy, and it cost me a little bit more than the average game, but definitely worth it. I've heard the Dice Tower go on mad about this on their top 10 lists. They've put it on so many of them, and it just sounded up my street. Not quite gateway level, but not heavy either. Sort of in the middle, cool little Euro from times gone by. This one went out of print and is so sought after, it's unreal. Especially expansion, which I don't have for this game yet. So if anybody wants to sell me the expansion, please do. Just don't charge me too much. But, or Christmas is coming up. in a few months. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yeah, anyway, Pillars of the Earth, I do really enjoy this one, and it is definitely best played with 4 players. And most Euros, like I say, this is a Euro that I want to play with the most players. They are rare. They are super rare, because as I said before, it just tends to add to the time. And yes, there is a little added time with 4 players in this, but you barely notice it. But you really do want 4 players, and there's 2 reasons why. Firstly, the player spaces. 4 gives you the most contention between all the spaces on the worker placement board. So therefore, this is the most like cutthroat way you can play it. So it's like, oh, you know, you took my spot. You took my spot. There's definitely more of that. But secondly, the mechanic where you draw the meeples, the pawns out of the bag, the master builders, with less players, you don't feel that constrained by when they pull them out choice-wise, because if you were only playing this with 2 players, you'd pull out, say, your opponent's pawn, and they decide, well, you know what, chances are I'm going to go in a minute, and there's only 1 space you're going to take, so I could probably just wait. And so most of the time in less players, you don't tend to spend that much to put your pawn out unless you're really desperate. 4 players though, that's a whole different story, because each player has got 3 master builders, so that's 12 master builders that have got to go on this board that doesn't have that many spaces, or certainly not that many different actions to, you know, fit 12 pawns on. And when yours gets pulled out first, it's like, oh my god, I got to spend 7 gold to put this guy out, but it could be ages before I see another pawn, and I really need to go and grab that card, and I just think that he's going to grab it, and suddenly the stress level, or that decision-making process, is amplified greatly with 4 players. Knowing that 3 other players have got to come out, and the chances of you pulling your master builder, you know, 2 left after all the other 9 are pulled out, suddenly your chances are slimmer, and you're thinking, I know it's expensive, but I've got to do it. 7 gold is worth... Oh, I'll do it. 7 gold, right. And that just becomes so much more enjoyable for this game, because everybody's got to go through that. And you'll get some people that, you know, don't go for a while. They get the cheapest builders, but then they're only left with what's left on the board, and there's not very much. So definitely this one is worth playing with 4 players. Definitely the max. And, well, the award for most beautiful board goes to the Pillars of the Earth, because this one is illustrated by, I believe, Michael Menzel, I believe. Yes, Michael Menzel, the artist. And if you've seen my Portsmouth on board, you know, photos that I do for my weekly meetup, I use a photo of this board with some of the Stonemaier, you can't see them in the shop, but the Stonemaier realistic resources. And it is one of the most beautiful sights I have seen on a board. It's just so gorgeous, so beautiful. So if you like good looking boards, definitely grab this. But to be fair, if you like a solid, great Euro that isn't too heavy, but not too light, it involves great decision making, it's just streamlined and not clunky, and if you like putting a cathedral together, then definitely check this out. And don't worry if you've not read the book. I have not read the book it's based on. Does not matter 1 iota. So definitely worth playing. My number 3 for max players, Pillars of the Earth. My number 2, it makes me a little sad that I've got to put this one on the list. Not because I don't enjoy it, I love this game in general, and I love playing this for max players. The reason that I'm a little bit sad to put on the list is because this is heavy, and I have to hold it tight to make certain that things don't start popping out because there's so much in this box. And I had to pick it up from the lowest corner of my shelf, moving lights out of the way and everything, so it's just much of a hassle to do this one. But number 2, Tom Vassell adores this game. I love it to bits as well. I'm certainly not going to put it as high as number 1 on my top 100, spoiler, but certainly it's definitely a high one for me, and it's Cosmic Encounter. Cosmic Encounter. Now, the expansions each brought in a new player, and I think you can play it with 8 players now, and that gets a little bit unwieldy. But like I said, not including expansions. If you have just the base set of Cosmic Encounter, and even if you do have a couple of expansions, I say that the best way to play this is with the max number the base game does, which is 5. 5 players. You can play this between 3 to 5. 4 is okay. But 3, I can't imagine anybody wanting to play Cosmic Encounter with only 3 players. You know, you versus them, and then you've only got the one person to try and ally with. That doesn't seem fun to me. And this one is like the max players because I think if I'm playing Cosmic Encounter, I will religiously only want to play this when there is 5 players. It's it's that good of a game and it needs more players. The expansions make it to a somewhat of an unwieldy level, but 5 players, definitely I think the perfect way to play this because one person's up against another person, you've got 3 other people to get as allies. The game doesn't take stupid long amounts of time. You have enough allies to get. It's not even, so you don't end up with that sort of a 2v2 type arrangement. It's always, most likely, unless someone abstains, going to be an uneven battle, and that throws a nice little spanner in the works. But Cosmic Encounter, definitely a great negotiation game. One of my favourite games of all time. I get a blast playing this. I just wish more people I knew were massively into this because then I could bring it out more often. But I usually take it to every convention, and in fact I had a great convention game at the expo with this one where I taught it to some new players. I think there was 5 of us in this occasion, and most of them hadn't played it before. We had a great time with the negotiation and that. And I have learned not to be such a kind person to new female players as they play this game, as I found out when I decided to be nice to the new lady who was playing this game. And I thought, you've not played negotiation games before, I'll be nice, they're picking on you, right, I'm going to help you, I'll heal you up, I've got the healer, I'm going to give you a break, we can do this, we can work together. Only to be stabbed in the back the second I got to the last turn, and it could have been a joint victory, but no, she decided to go it alone with the powerful cards she had in her hand. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. You did well, you deserve that win, and it taught me one important thing. Stop being a sucker for a pretty face, because they know how to get you. They know how to wrap you around their little finger, and I just fell for the pretty face. That's all I did. So, yeah, kudos to you. Great fun game. But yeah, 5 players, male or female, whatever. 5 players is the way to play Cosmic Encounter from the base game. My number 2. And finally, my number 1. This game is... I will play this game with other player accounts, but in terms of not only the full enjoyment, but also just game balance in general, with or without expansion, this one is definitely the one to play with max players. I think if you get a chance and there's there's this many of you set up, I believe in the game 4 with the base set, 5 with the expansion, but again, going by base set alone, if you've got 4 players, you definitely want to play this one with that many number of players, and that one is Chaos in the Old World. You can only play this with 3 or 4 players, and if you want to call slight foul on that, then you can, but saying that, game balance, this is definitely pretty much at its prime with 4 players. With the expansion, that gives you another race, again, you want it at max, because this one is just perfect at that level. The game balance of having the 4 different gods, each with their special abilities and how some are better against others and weaker against others, you need that. Not just for general enjoyment, but also for game balance, because if you have only 3 players, sometimes one race can slightly dominate over another. So you really want to max this one out. It's a great area control game, sadly out of print because, well, the whole Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight fiasco means that this one's unlikely to get made ever again, which is why that when you find this on the second-hand market, people are ripping people off left and right. That was for an earlier podcast. But yeah, I've got a copy. I'm not getting rid of this one. No way, I'm keeping this one because this is a fantastic area control game, especially if you're a fan of the Warhammer universe with the gods like Khorne and Nurgle and Zenith, whatever they are, and Slaanesh. I don't know how you pronounce those names properly, but great game. Asymmetrical, probably one of the best asymmetrical games that are out there, because when you've got that perfect balance of 4 players, the asymmetrical nature just works so well. Each god plays very differently in terms of tactics and what units and powers they have. Looks great on the board. The theme is dark. Yes, if you're not used to seeing some Veil of Human Skin as a game board and you don't like this whole dark, nasty gods killing each other, then yeah, you might want to look away. But nah, for the serious gamer, for the Warhammer fanatic, for anybody who just like the Chaos faction in Warhammer, for example, or somebody who just wants an area control game with asymmetrical powers that works perfectly for 4 players, which is, an easy number, to get hold of, because 5 or 6 players, it's specific with those ones. That's why this one just beat out Cosmic Encounter. But 4 players is generally easy to get hold of, and if you've got 4 and you've got a bit of time on your hands, definitely worth playing Chaos in the Old World. So that's my number 1. So that's my first top 10 list, the top 10 games with max players. Which ones do you agree with? Which ones do you disagree with? I want to know what your top 10s are. So leave them in the comments below. Contact me on Twitter or Facebook if need be. I want to know what's your favourite game that you want to play with max players, and I want to know why. This is the big thing. I don't just want to know title A, that's it. Tell me why you want to play that with max players, because that's the interesting part when the debates start happening, whether it's an agreement or a disagreement. You might think that one of my choices is perfect for max players, but have a different reason as to why, in which case I want to hear it. I've got some honourable mentions on the list though. I'll go through a few of those. I did consider Isle of Skye, the simple Euro game. That plays very quickly with the max number of players and it scales very well. Celestia, the push your luck game, great with the maximum number of players because loads of people on your ship and everybody's sort of going, do I want to jump off or not? You can bluff and negotiate lots of people. It works very well. Seasons I considered, but I kind of thought that if I have a chance to play it with only 2 or 3 players, I'd rather do it than 4, but 4 still works pretty well. Biblios, simple little filler, works great with 4 players, because auctions with less players aren't that great. Ticket to Ride, I thought about it, but then I figured, well, I could play it with any number of players, and the problem with Ticket to Ride is that it really needs to be a short game, and 5 players just takes that a little bit too long for my liking. Not to mention it's also the most cutthroat way to play that game, so if you don't want it to be cutthroat and you want it to be just nice and short, I wasn't too keen on putting that one on the list. I think the closest one to my list was probably Shadowhunters, where you each control a secret thing and you're all on teams, like the dark people versus I forget what it is, but the good guys, the bad guys and the neutrals. And the more players you have at that, with all the neutral roles involved, it turns into a good bit of a cluster with that one. Mysterium was another one, the classic upgrade to Dixit, where you are the psychic detectives and the ghost is handing you those story-like Dixit artwork cards to work together. With the max number of players, you have a pretty difficult time on your hands because everybody is chatting with everyone and people can go off on tangents and everything. Still works pretty well, but just takes a little bit too long. I think maybe Mysterium and Shadowhunters would be in my 11 or 12. I was very tempted to put those as number 10. Mission Red Planet scales quite well, works great with 6 players as most area control games does, but to be fair, I'm happy to play it with less because it doesn't get in the way of the area control and it does obviously make the game quicker. And finally, Quadropolis was another one I considered because it's a great city building gateway title, super fast with 2, 3 or 4 players. If people want to play a gateway game and there's 4, I have no qualms pulling Quadropolis out. But, a squeaker, so, Quadropolis, Mysterium, and Shadowhunters would have been the kind of 11, 12, 13. I did greatly consider those. So, that's my first top 10 list. Do you agree or disagree? Like I said, let me know. I will have a think about what my next top 10 list is going to be, but I welcome suggestions as well. So whether you see me on Facebook or Twitter, or you want to leave a comment below, I'm interested to hear what top 10 lists you'd like to hear. But bearing in mind, like I said, I'm keeping these on the wacky side. So I don't want top 10 mechanic, I don't want top 10 publisher or year, something a little bit different, and I'll listen to ideas, and if there's one that I particularly like, I'll try to do a list and I'll put it on the video, and if necessary, if you like, I'll even credit you in the description. So that's it for me. I'm going to get on and eat some lovely roast chicken that's downstairs. So yes, jealous much? Anyway, that's it from me. I'm going to stop going on now. So remember, with all these 10 games, with all the other games that I mentioned, they are all still only games. Take care, and I'll see you on the next list.